Okay, gotten most of everything put back together. Valve covers all tight. 3 coils are in. Radio suppressor's back on. About to connect the cylinder head temperature sensor. And then need to drain out the oil down there. One thing to pay attention to is the RTV needs to set up for about an hour before you turn the engine on. That way it gives it a little bit of time to set up and build some oil resistance. So, just a little note there. Otherwise, the job will be done pretty quick. Okay, now that the valve cover's back on, we'll be tightening the bolts on the perimeter. I'm sure there's a sequence, but since I don't have it, we'll be doing a crisscross or a star pattern, and that should take care of it. These do not need to be overly tight, since after all it is only a valve cover. It's not really anything crucial. Just keep dirt out, keep oil in. And this will take care of the leaks this car is experiencing. After everything is tight here, I will be removing the number 4 spark plug and letting the oil drain into the cylinder. Alright, now that the valve cover is ready to go, you want to put a dab of sealer right there, and then you want to put a dab of sealer right there, and you will see a parting line that denotes the front cover and the cylinder head. You want to make sure that it gets right over that parting line. Now, I'm going to redo that. Actually, no, that's perfect, but there are a few chunks in that little dab of sealant there. So now, valve cover goes in. Alright, so I chose a screwdriver, and what you want to do is, might be a little tough one-handed, but you want to kind of dig underneath the gasket. Yeah, you want to dig under the gasket until you can try to pop it out. There you go. And be very careful, because this valve cover is fragile. And if you try it the wrong way, you will break it. And then you're just going to have to order a new valve cover, or go to a junkyard and get a new one and replace the gasket anyways. Yeah, that gasket was really crispy. So, gotta get the little ones there and there. Yep, there we go. Just gotta work at it and they'll come off. Alright, last one is coming off. There it goes. And now time for the new ones. Set them in. These do not need lube, they do not need RTV. They are press fit and they will stay on their own. There we go. And these gaskets are all unique to their own positions, so that means that you cannot get them mixed up. And if you cannot get them in, that means that they're going in the wrong way or the wrong spot. So you just press these in, Again, no RTV is required for these, except for the 2 spots which I showed earlier in the video and I will show again. There we go. Now this is a Fel-Pro gasket, but you can get pretty much any reputable gasket that you can. Usually I'd get a Motorcraft gasket, but since this one was available online really cheap, and Fel-Pro is a good name, I just went for it. Now if you have problems like the corner sticking up like that, or any other issues with the gasket, you do not want to force the gasket in place by seating it with the fasteners. You want to be able to get it all in by hand, just like that. Alright, all good. Now this is ready to be put back on the car. For this part of the job, I'm going to go ahead and do it in the shade. This just fell off, and for this you can either try to dig it out by hand, use a very small flat blade screwdriver, or you can use a pick, but be very careful not to gouge the plastic of the valve cover when you're doing this. Alright, now that everything is clean here, you can see wiped it down with a damp towel. What you want to do is you want to scrape very carefully with a razor blade where the front cover meets the cylinder head, because Ford uses RTV to seal that area, and it is important to put a fresh bead of RTV in the same spot when you replace this gasket. Alright, camera started to overheat, but now with the valve cover off, you can see a little bit better what I'm talking about. Good, all good, till we get to number 4. Yep, swimming in oil. So I'm going to wipe down the edge of the head, and then I'm going to go over to the valve cover and swap out the old gasket for the new one. Alright, got all these studs and bolts wrestled off and loose. One actually did come off completely, but valve cover broke loose, and there it is. Should try to not get so much trash into the... Alright, so these 2 here in the corner are kind of tough to get to by hand, so you want to do is take your extension and your socket, and you want to stick it through the wiring harnesses and use that to undo these. There we go. Let's see. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, I just gotta get these all loosened up, and then should be able to pop the valve cover off of there and replace the gasket. Last 2. Now these fasteners are all captive, so they should say they're all captive except for the 2 center ones. At least they should be. So that means that they will stay with the valve cover. Yeah, these are captive also. It's been a while since I've done one of these, so forgive me for that. Alright, so now that the bracket is out of the way, continue breaking loose the outside valve cover nuts. We're going around the perimeter here. There we go. back here, kind of tough to get to, but it should not be a problem. There we go, broken loose. Double check this one here, good. And then there are two, one there and one there on the inside. Don't forget to break those loose, otherwise you'll be wondering why it will not come off the engine. There we go. Alright, I'm going to finish removing these bolts and nuts off camera, then I'll come back. Yeah, it just dropped it. Not a complete video until you drop something. I'm going to leave that in there just to show I'm human. Okay, so you want to come back here and you want to pop this 13mm loose, and once it's broken free you can undo it by hand. This comes off. There we go. So once you've removed that 8mm on top, now the bracket is free. There's one more Christmas tree clip kind of right there in that one hole you see in the corner, and bracket is now completely bare to be removed with a 13mm wrench. Alright folks, sorry about that. You actually do need another tool. You need a 13mm wrench, preferably a ratcheting wrench. Get down in there and remove this bolt here from the back of the engine, and that will remove this whole bracket from the from the engine there. Now the reason you want to remove this one here, this 8mm here, is to be able to give a little bit more slack in the wiring, to be able to spread the harness out of the way of the valve cover when it comes time to remove it. Alright, now I'm going to start by breaking loose the valve cover. Just go around with each nut or stud and kind of break it loose. And this is why you want to use a deep well socket. See how big that stud is right there. If you need to get past that, you'll never be able to do it with a short socket. Alright, get down in there, break that loose. Get this one. Alright, now come along the back side, do the same thing. You want to remove the radio suppressor here. Might be a little tough because of this strut bar here, so I might need to go grab a wrench. But if you do not have the strut bar, this will not be a problem. Okay, coil bolts are all removed. Just pull straight up. That one's good. 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 There you go, see? That's what I'm talking about. The valve cover gasket is leaking there, so if you ever check the oil and there's any issues with it being low, it's not burning oil, it's not got any other kind of leaks or any other problems, then that's where it's going. You can kind of see down in there how that spark plug well is completely filled with oil. So you can pull the spark plug out of there, and the oil in the cylinder really shouldn't hurt all that much. Just let it sit for a little while and it'll seep past the piston rings a little bit. So just a fair warning, when you start the car back up after doing this job, it will smoke a little bit because that oil is going to drain into the cylinder. As you can see, the other three are dry. Okay, to get the job done, all you need is a T-handle, a extension, and a 5/16 or an 8mm socket, and it has to be deep well to be able to get over the studs on the valve cover. Just breaking loose the coil bolts now, and going to go ahead and remove them. So, break them loose. They should come off by hand. I think I'll probably just do one to show, then remove the other 3 off camera because it's kind of repetitive. But if there is one that's really bad, I'll make sure to show one that's nice and full of oil. So what I've already done is I've disconnected all the wiring, injectors, coils, like I said, cylinder head temperature sensor, and then pulled all the looms off the studs here for the valve cover gasket, for the valve cover rather. Probably need to take the radio suppressor off, and then got to take the coils off of here. Alright, going to be replacing the valve cover gasket here on this 2009 Ford Focus with a 2-liter Duratec inline 4 engine. This applies to all Ford Focus models 08 to 11, doesn't matter automatic or manual, no difference in the engine. After about 100,000 miles or so, the valve cover starts to leak. You can kind of see some oil down in there, the residue along the coils, and starts to cause misfires when oil gets down into the spark plug wells, shorts out between the ground electrode and the tubes that go through the cylinder head. So you need to replace the valve cover gasket, which I have over here. There is the center spark plug tube seals, and that's the outer. There you go, that's the outer gasket. Not laid out exactly perfect, but that's pretty much the way it goes in there. And this is going to be replacing the old gasket.